Welcome back to the Goodol'boys channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Hawk 250 suspension. Alright guys, so beside me here is my 2019 Hawk 250. Now we're going to be talking about the suspension on this thing, and I do want to start out by saying this is an awesome bike. Love it. Obviously there are some things that could be better on it, but for $1,400 shipped to your house, this thing is awesome. So there's lots of other adventure bikes out there. One of those adventure bikes is a CRF 250L, and I actually had 2 years of those bikes. I had a 2016 and I had a 2017. And both bikes. So quick little side note here, guys. I do have a video of the 2016 doing some extreme cornering on some curvy road, and also oil filter change on the 2017 videos I found on my YouTube channel here. If you guys want to check them out, they'll be in the description box below. Bikes were great. Loved them both. And they had loads of suspension travel, super soft. Definitely not something you would want to race with. Kind of more towards the trail bike suspension kind of setup, but you know, it's some of the smoothest suspension I've ever ever had the chance to ride on. 250L suspension. Now this thing, I will say, it does have some pretty soft suspension, but not nearly as soft as the 250L, especially in the back. The front is actually really soft, but the back on the road on the 250L, you couldn't even feel a crack in the road. This thing, you go over a little crack in the road and it will actually, you can feel it through the seat. So not the most comfortable thing. Could be a combination of things, including the seat foam being different. I will say the seat foam, if you consider it to be part of the suspension setup, definitely it's super soft on this bike, but it's too soft really. Because you sit on it and you sink to the bottom of the seat, and you're kind of sitting on the plastic part of the seat, and you can kind of feel it. You know, it's not too terrible, but not great either. Another major difference, if we're comparing this bike specifically to the 250L, is that the 250L, like I said, has a lot more suspension travel. So you're not bottoming out constantly. A lot of times where this thing bottoms out quite a bit more than the 250L would have. So a good example of the suspension having not that great of travel on this thing is I took it to Wayne once, and that was actually the time I broke my chain while I was hitting a hill climb. Pretty wicked. Actually, if you guys want to check the video out, I'll link it down in the description box below. But on that trip, it was actually, was it Wayne? I think it was Wayne National Forest or Perry State Forest, one of the two places. And keep in mind, I was trying to keep up with 250 and 450 race bikes, and I actually did pretty good. I'm sure they could have took off and rode without me, but you know, the old Hawk did pretty good. The only problem was whenever you're going over bumps and jumps and stuff, every time it would bottom out. So the suspension definitely limits you to how aggressively you can ride, for sure. And I think that's a given. So there's something else here on the Hawk 250 that I just could not pass over, and that's the lack of rear suspension travel. And I'll talk about this a little bit in the video. The bike overall lacks suspension travel front and rear, but you especially notice it on the back. The shock is just too short. If you're used to Japanese bikes or name brand bikes, if you hop on this bike, you can definitely tell this rear suspension just is lacking in travel. One good example of this is a lot of people out there that have experience riding know that there's situations you get into where there's a log in the trail, and what you do is usually you wheelie over it. So this is usually while you're going, you see the log, you pop the front end up, and you just let the rear suspension absorb the log. Now when you're trying to wheelie over even small logs with the Hawk 250, lots of times the suspension bottoms out and you get kicked forward. Whereas on most other bikes, you're not going to get kicked. The rear suspension's just going to absorb the log and you'll just fly right over it, no problems. So a positive about the rear suspension here is just the simplicity of it. You can see they have a more modern way of hooking the rear suspension up here. It basically bolts right onto the swing arm. The older style has a bunch of linkages, bearings and bushings and all that. And this one just hooks to the swing arm, which, like I said, is more modern. So a lot simpler, a lot less stuff to go wrong. And overall, they had the right idea, just they didn't execute it right. They just needed a longer shock. I don't want to have you guys see this bike in a negative way, because it's definitely an awesome bike, but it's just that, you know, obviously it doesn't have race bike suspension where you can hit whoops, say, for example, with a race bike. This thing, obviously, you can't do anything like that. So guys, I'm editing this video, going through here and realizing that I only am talking about negatives with the Hawk 250 suspension. So race bike suspension is great. It handles a whole lot better than what the Hawk has, obviously. But one of the big reasons why I did not get another race bike was because of the suspension. If you have a bad back or a back that hurts, riding on a race bike, it can really throw your back out and it can cause you back pain and things like that. So there are a lot of positives to the softer suspension on the Hawk 250. One of those is just the ride quality. And along with the ride quality, it doesn't really hurt your back to ride the bike. On a race bike, it's a stiffer ride. Yes, it does have better handling, but the stiffer ride can cause you issues with your back. I unfortunately do have a few back problems, so the softer suspension on the Hawk, again, was a major reason why I went with a Hawk instead of another race bike or something. I feel somewhat qualified to talk about the suspension, and I've never really messed with suspension or studied suspension or anything like that, but just for the fact that I've ridden multiple four-wheelers, dirt bikes, things like that. I actually had a YZ 450F, I believe it was. It's a 2004, and I know that sounds like an old bike. It's because it is, but that's when they actually started putting titanium valves in those bikes. That was the 5-valve bike. I mean, it was a true race bike, tuned suspension, and I mean, that bike you can ride fast. It doesn't matter what you hit, jump-wise, whoops, anything you want. You're not gonna get out of control or wreck if you know halfway what you're doing, because the suspension's just tuned that good. Plus, I had experience with the 250L, so I can kind of compare this to the 250L suspension-wise. Not a race bike, but definitely, you know, I think the suspension's mostly adequate for what you're going to be doing with this bike. Mostly probably on-road for the majority of people, or kind of like I use it just in the backyard, in the creek, and the couple acres behind your house with woods or whatever. I did enjoy actually bringing it to Wayne, however, just for the fact that I can't ride it as aggressively as I'd like to because of suspension, it's definitely a downside. But again, for $1,400, you know, obviously you cannot beat, you know, the bike. And also, I would like to mention, I do have 1,000 miles on this bike. Actually, right now I've actually got 1,220 miles. So a little over 1,000 miles. So I've had a decent bit of time to kind of feel the bike out, ride it, test the suspension. Like I said, I've been to Wayne National Forest, Perry with it. You know, just I ride it around the house here whenever I can, and it's had lots of road riding. Now I will say, of course, for the road, like I said, suspension completely adequate. If you're comparing this thing to a race bike or something like a 1000RR, CBR 1000RR or something, this thing's gonna beat it just because of how smooth it is, suspension wise. It's not gonna beat it speed wise, but it'll, you know, as far as ride quality, I think this thing would probably have something like that beat. So just to recap, the point that I wanted to get across is that it doesn't have race bike suspension. It's smooth trail suspension that you would expect. It's going to be bottoming out on things. When compared to the 250L, it's kind of the same feeling, but really not. Suspension's a lot shorter. The rear suspension is stiffer. When I say this suspension's shorter, obviously I mean that this has a lot less suspension travel than the 250L. Really, when compared to a lot of other bikes, it's, you know, there is no comparison, but at the same time, again, the other point, which is it's a $1,400 bike delivered to your house that's actually not a bad bike so far in my experience. It's a great bike. Gonna be putting lots more miles on this thing. We're just gonna ride it until it wears out, or until I don't know, till it wears out, I guess, pretty much. So stick around, lots more videos to come on this thing. I really do enjoy it. You know, I got the thing out earlier today to bring it back here, and like I said, I do have some woods and a small little area to ride around my house, and I just couldn't help myself. It's such a fun bike. You know, I probably rode it around for half an hour without even expecting to ride it at all. It's that much fun, it's that enjoyable. So really awesome bike. Well guys, that's gonna wrap this video up. I want to thank you guys for watching. Thanks for all the subscribers, the comments, the likes, everything. You guys have been growing the channel and you really like the hawk content, so thanks again. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Check out the description box below. Like I said, lots of other hawk videos down there. In fact, I'll put my entire playlist of all my Hawk 250 videos down there below so you guys can watch them. And I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace. Okay guys, so I just wanted to show you these couple extra clips that are kind of about suspension or have to do with suspension. So you can see the Hawk 250 here on this little ramp that I set up. It's about 2 feet tall at the highest spot, and of course the Hawk 250 is in first gear. I do have road gearing, so it's a little higher or a little faster than your typical Hawk 250. So with all that being said, I did want to show you guys how easy it is to bottom this thing out just on a 2-foot jump. And I know this actually is a pretty decent sized jump. Most people that ride the Hawk 250 probably wouldn't hit something like this. But even with that being said, it's still a pretty, it is a pretty small jump. But here we can see the suspension normally with me on the bike. And even with the docile part of the ramp, there's not much of a slope or uphill part. And you can see the suspension is completely compressed. And the back doesn't compress too much, but you can see me jumping it. And when I land, obviously the thing is completely bottomed out. Again, all it takes is a 2-foot jump. Again, first gear, you can still see that somehow I got some pretty good air, but we'll just watch the whole thing real quick. I'll walk you through it. And you can see the fender flail around, same with the rear lights. And those are just telltale signs of the bike bottoming out. Got one more to show you guys here. Now this one, I bottomed out quite a bit harder. And same thing, first gear, 2-foot ramp. I just got a different angle here. And bam, you guys can hear it there. It bottomed out really hard. We'll rewatch that landing again. Walk through the steps here. And right there, you can see just how compressed everything is. Without a doubt, it was bottomed out really good there. And then I've got a couple more clips here just for fun. Let's see here. There's a little hill right here. And as I'm going up it, you can't see the suspension compress here, but that's where the hill is. This is a slow motion video, obviously. And then on my way back here, I'm coming off the little hill and the suspension compresses really good there. But to be fair, you can see the traffic in the background there, and I'm actually going faster than the traffic there. So, you know, it's not like I was going through here slow. I was actually booking it pretty good. So, you know, there's a reason why the suspension compressed. I came off the hill pretty fast. And then one more here for fun. This one's just the actual speed that I was going through here. And you can see I'm just booking it. It's just hilarious to watch. Just booking it through here. And then, let's see here. Yeah, I'm coming back through this way. So pretty cool. That's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Check out the description box below, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Woo!
our humanity.